What's up, freaks? TJ
And Ian.
here from Freakopolis, and today we are asking the question:
What would Wolverine look like as a 5th level, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons character?
Well, you're about to find out because we have done just that. We've created Wolverine inside of Roll20 as a 5th level D&D character.
And, to kick it off, we take a look at some key attributes that we think are defining for this character, and we try and fulfill them to make sure that when you play this character, you really feel like you're playing the Wolverine of the X-Men. And Wolverine's key attributes are his combat ability and his adamantium claws, of course.
That's right, he's very martially focused, known for...
Hacking and slashing.
Exactly. Next up, durability / regeneration. He's a guy that can get back into the fight because of that healing factor that allows him to just keep fighting.
Yeah, very, very powerful superpower of his. And then finally, his senses. He's got keen senses like an animal. His sight, his hearing, and particularly his smell are very keen.
So these are some of the things that we were keeping in mind while we were building out this character. We should let you know we built him as a 5th level D&D character to match with some of our other pop culture creations.
Keep them all balanced.
And pretty much everything that we applied to him was brought from either the Player's Handbook or the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, in the exception of a couple of magic items that we thought would help flesh out some of these key attributes.
So, let's take a look at the Wolverine. The Wolverine is a 1st level barbarian and a 4th level samurai fighter.
That's right, the samurai fighter actually came first in our mind. Obviously, that's a part of Wolverine's story and history. He spent some time in Japan. What better class than samurai? But there's also some class features that play really well into his key attributes
That we will be looking at in due time. And then Barbarian we dipped into as well, because the Rage gives him a bunch of physical resistance as well as some extra melee prowess and damage that felt very fitting for the Wolverine as a character.
Yeah, it's not crazy to have Wolverine like see red.
Yeah,
You know?
it happens.
We'll move on to background.
We chose Soldier as his background. The Wolverine is a long-lived soldier of many battles and many wars.
And that's explored in depth to varying degrees in different runs. But it is one of the options available in the Player's Handbook with like sort of rules as written. So it seemed like the most obvious choice.
And then I had imagined the Wolverine as a human, but TJ took the liberty of creating him as a hill dwarf, and I think that it worked out really well. What was your logic behind the hill dwarf option?
Well, I think the human would be more like Hugh Jackman's style. But in the comics, Wolverine is quite squat, quite round, quite gruff, quite hairy.
And that's all dwarf stuff.
It's very dwarven. Plus, some of the racial abilities played in really well to some of those marks that we're trying to hit. Not so much like something like stone cunning. That comes with any dwarf.
No, but the resilience, the dark vision, all that kind of
toughness.
stuff, yeah, definitely is very dwarvish and very the Wolverine. And finally, for the top stuff, alignment, and we landed on chaotic good. Even though we didn't discuss this too much between each other, I can totally see this. The Wolverine, he's a man who follows his own heart, his own vision of right and wrong, and he has no problem on ditching out if he thinks that you're not following his rules.
Yeah, I think that's true. So we're going to run through the background stuff first, just to give you a base level of like where this character is coming from.
And then we'll get into the meatier bits with the numbers and attributes and whatnot.
And so I should say, as a disclaimer, not all of this is like literally Wolverine's background. It's what fits Wolverine from the Player's Handbook. So, first up for a personality trait, I face problems head on. A simple, direct solution is the best path to success.
You see this rather often with the Wolverine. He charges in, he takes care of business, and if he can't do it just by charging in and taking care of business, then he tries again and charges in and takes care of business. So that's his style, absolutely.
And the person that wouldn't let him do something like this plays into his ideal, which is up next. Independence. When people follow orders blindly, they embrace a certain kind of tyranny. So that's why he comes head to head with Professor X.
And Cyclops, yeah.
He might feel that the orders given or the orders to follow are not always the action best taken because of his personality trait.
And so, moving on to his bonds, those who fight beside me are those worth dying for. And you can see this in his past, in the battles and wars he's been through, of course. He's very loyal, but also coming into the X-Men, his pride and his family that he gathers there. He truly tries to protect them, and when they fight alongside him, there's no one more concrete to have at your side than the Wolverine.
I think he'd be happy to die for any of them.
Yep.
Were he able to.
In fact, you see a good amount of that in X-Men, the new ones. What is it?
Last Stand and First Class.
And the comic that you just got.
Oh, in House of X.
Yeah, House of X.
Yes.
Yeah. It definitely shows pretty early on in there.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
His flaw, I'd rather eat my armor than admit when I'm wrong. Of course, Wolverine doesn't exactly wear too much armor. But,
No, but he is very stubborn, and, he often is set in his ways.
Yes.
For good reason. He's been through a lot.
And I think pretty much all of this defines a character who's very independent, stubborn, and set in his old ways. So that's the general ideas that you get from his background personality stuff. And let's switch on over to his attributes.
We went through a couple iterations of attributes after, that's the nature of creating characters in D&D and like leveling them up. We switched some things around to best optimize for a D&D character. And I think in general that this is a pretty good build for him.
No doubt.
So starting with the standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8.
Some strengths, some average stats, and a weakness is generally how you like to play it. So, his strength sits at a 14, which some may say that's rather weak for the Wolverine, but the truth is, we figure the Wolverine's tougher than he is strong.
I think he is. We gave something like the Hulk. He ended up at a 23.
Right.
I think this is reasonable. He is above average strength. He's not quite even as strong as
Spider-Man. Yeah.
So I think a 14 is fine. It gives him a decent bonus on his to hit and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just straight the 14 from the standard array. He has no bonuses or minuses after later additions in character creation.
Then moving over to his dexterity, he's sitting at a +1 with a 12 dexterity in total. Not exactly the fastest of characters, but that +1 does apply to a good amount of abilities, his initiative as well as his armor class. So.
That is also the straight 12.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, he can be sort of acrobatic at times, but really, I think he relies on his ability to regenerate to, the fastball special. That's really just him getting thrown at something,
Yep. You're counting on his ability to absorb the damage and come back from it more so than just avoiding it outright. And so I think that plays out pretty well. And then, of course, his constitution, his highest stat by far, an 18 with a +4 on the modifier.
Yeah, this is, clearly for a 5th level character, 18 is pretty solid.
Yep.
Probably going to be your highest stat. It seemed like Constitution was a natural fit given his durability and his ability to regenerate. And you'll see how that plays into some as we get into the class features. But yeah, that gives him a healthy pool of health.
Oh, yeah.
And as well as ability to resist a lot of other effects, too.
And then, his intelligence, we put at the standard 10 with a +0 modifier. He's never really been particularly known to be intelligent, but he's not dumb, he's not dim-witted,
He's maybe simple, just in goal and in mind, but average intelligence seemed pretty fair. So that's the straight 10 there.
And then with a wisdom, he's sitting at a 14, which makes good sense, a +2 modifier. That is his senses, his perception ability lends towards a pretty good wisdom for certain. He's able to sniff people out, he's able to see people in the night, and that all comes from a decent wisdom score.
And finally, his charisma is at an 8.
A -1 modifier.
He's not particularly well-liked.
No.
He's not particularly persuasive.
Definitely an outsider more often than not.
Because he's this squat, hairy mutant. So that seemed natural. That's the 8 from the standard array. That's kind of the dump stat.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a quick glance over at his saving throws. He's got a +5 in strength. Pretty darn impressive.
Proficient.
+1 in dexterity. You hope for the best. +7 in constitution is more than tough enough to handle a lot of attacks at level 5 in the least. And then a +0 intelligence, +2 to wisdom, -1 to charisma. Rather even on the mental side of things.
Yeah, he gets those proficiencies from his class of fighter.
Yep.
Strength and constitution. So nice bump there for some stuff that he was already pretty good at.
Then we'll move on down and take a quick look at his skills. Doesn't have too many skills to worry about, but they're important ones. He's got a +5 in athletics. This just makes sense. He's strong.
Jumping over things, pushing, pulling.
Yeah.
All that stuff is covered by that.
A +5 in insight. This actually came from his samurai subclass. And TJ, why do you feel like you're the one that made the choice there? Why insight?
I think Wolverine is pretty good at reading a room.
Yeah.
You know? I think he knows when trouble's coming. He knows when somebody's lying to him. He's just an insightful dude despite his...
Gruff demeanor.
Yeah, exactly.
And then intimidation. Which, at a +2 due to his low charisma, though often DMs will allow you to substitute your strength for such things, he's very intimidating. He has growled at people and snapped at them and scared them into thinking his way of thinking.
Finally, his next proficiency is in perception.
That just makes sense.
+5 is pretty solid. Nothing crazy. It's not like, expertise with a rogue or a bard, but, a +5 is a pretty solid bonus to any roll.
No doubt. Yeah, he'll be able to find the ropers in the dungeon, that kind of stuff. And then, finally, a +5 in survival, which makes good sense due to his history of wandering, being an outsider, and lasting long enough to come back in and play his role in the story. So
proficiencies in athletics, insight, intimidation, perception, and finally, survival.
That all looks good to me. Now then.
He's got some proficiencies in some tools and languages as well.
Yep.
I gave him proficiency in brewer supplies, if you scroll down a bit, just because he gets a tool proficiency, and it seemed like, he likes to have a drink. So
Absolutely.
It makes sense.
Now we'll switch on over to some of the real meat of it, which is his features and traits. And first up, we got dark vision.
That comes from being a dwarf. You can see dim light within 60 feet of you, as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light.
Very excellent adventuring capabilities when you have dark vision. This will allow him to be at the lead and take the forefront of any traps or danger that the party runs into, and you're going to want Wolverine there over pretty much anyone else, because he is tough as nails, dwarven resilience.
He gains advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance against poison damage.
Makes sense for a guy who can regenerate like crazy. I don't know if the Wolverine's ever been taken down by poison.
Yeah, I would find that hard to believe.
Likewise. Dwarven toughness.
His HP maximum increases by 1, and it increases by 1 every time a level is gained. So it's effectively like having another con.
Yeah, a bonus, a 20 con. Yeah.
As far as HP.
Yeah, as far as HP is concerned, and toughness as a feat and dwarven toughness as kind of an innate racial feat are always a good choice for an adventurer. Stone cunning, double proficiency in history checks when related to the origin of stonework. That's a dwarf
Comes
thing.
Being a dwarf.
Yep.
All of these do, in fact. Dark vision, dwarven resilience, dwarven toughness, and stone coming are his dwarven race abilities. We're going to get into some class stuff up next with
2-weapon fighting.
This is from Fighter, first level. When engaging in 2-weapon fighting, add plus strength to the damage of the second attack. So that, in that case, is slash and slash as the bonus action with his claws. It's that second attack per turn gives him the strength bonus.
The strength bonus as well, which is definitely really important because you don't want to have a weak left hook when you're 2-weapon fighting.
Look at that left arm.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, second wind.
Once per short or long rest as a bonus action, regain HP equal to 1d10 plus fighter level.
So +4. And that's...
So if he doesn't want to attack, if he's hurting,
Yep.
he can sort of get some of that regeneration going.
Yeah. Or he can still throw his fists down and take a breather as well as a bonus action with second wind. It's definitely a really good sustain ability in general for fighters. Don't forget about that one.
Yep. Great use of bonus action. Up next, Action Surge, also from Fighter, second level. Once per short or long rest, take an additional... an action on top of the regular action and bonus action.
So that is really powerful. It's your big move in the fight as a fighter, and it would allow the Wolverine to make additional attacks, as well as potentially use his abilities that we're going to be looking into in just a moment here. Fighting Spirit.
So this is the first occurrence of a class ability based on that samurai class.
Yes.
It's actually the only ability he gets from becoming a samurai.
At this level.
Yes, at 5th level, except for the addition of an extra proficiency in a skill.
Which we used on Insight, like I had said, yeah.
That's right. So yes, the addition of Fighting Spirit. As a bonus action, take advantage on weapon attack rolls until the end of turn. Also gain 5 temporary HP. You have 3 uses per long rest.
Really, really cool ability for samurai fighters that allows you to really take advantage of your positioning, wail on the enemy, and be the tank you always wanted to be by ranking up the temporary HP.
So it's some of that combat we talked about.
Yep.
They'll use those claws to better effectiveness, as well as some sort of regeneration in a D&D-ish way.
Yeah.
The 5 temporary HP.
Dwarven Fortitude.
When we reached 4th level, we weren't sure what we wanted to do.
Yeah, we looked through quite a few options, many feats we considered molds on attribute bonuses, but when TJ took a look at this feat out of Xanathar's, he immediately knew what we were looking for.
It's just a really cool feat that I had never seen before. So it gives him +1 to Constitution. That's where we get the 18 from.
Yep.
When taking the dodge action, not often used, maybe more now,
Yep.
spend 1 hit die to heal. Roll the die, add Constitution modifier, and regain each HP equal to the total.
And generally for the Wolverine, this will be a D10 at a +4, and that is some really good bonus regen during your round.
Yeah, exactly. I like the fact that it uses hit dice as sort of a pool.
Yep.
You don't see that a lot in D&D. It's kind of an not often used resource.
Yeah, unless your DM's all about short rests. And if they're not, you still get to use them if you take the Dwarven Fortitude.
So some more of that regeneration.
And this was the one I was referring to when I said that Action Surge could be tied in really well with an additional ability that he had, in that he could slash with his claws again as a bonus action, then Action Surge and dodge with Dwarven Fortitude, have the dodge action going, and heal. All of this rakes up to a very big turn that could be really, really powerful and formidable for the Wolverine.
Dodge imposes disadvantage.
Yes.
So that's a nice bonus in itself, but to heal on top of it is really nice.
Now, for his Barbarian stuff, as this leads us away from what he got by leveling up in Fighter, he dipped into Barbarian and grabbed himself, of course, Rage. And Rage, you get 2 uses per long rest. It lasts for 1 minute. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws while raging. On melee weapon attacks using strength, you gain +2 damage. And you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. This is all really powerful stuff as far as your ability to sustain, at least against normal enemies. I don't know if the Wolverine's particularly resilient to magic and energy attacks, you know?
I don't think so, but, when you're fighting something like Wendigo or Hulk or whatever, that resistance to bludgeoning and piercing is a nice bonus.
Definitely comes into play, yeah. As well as some additional melee weapon damage that you'd be looking for. And, though he doesn't have a crazy strength saving throw, when pushed to it, of course the Wolverine could lift that boulder or push that car or whatever, you know.
Exactly.
So that's where we get that. And finally, a very interesting kind of idea that we delved into was that he would get unarmored defense as well for being a first level barbarian, where his armor class is equal to 10 plus his dexterity modifier plus his con modifier. Now, as a fighter, he can wear any armor he wants, but even if he's not wearing armor, due to his +1 dexterity modifier and his +4 constitution modifier, he sits with a 15 armor class.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, just bare-chested.
And I mean, he doesn't usually wear armor.
No, exactly.
His armor is sort of on the inside, and the ability for him to regenerate so rapidly. So we felt it more appropriate to him to leave him unarmored and take the dex and con bonus.
Yep.
Really to use it effectively.
For his initiative bonus, he's sitting at a +1. Not particularly impressive, but also not lagging behind by any means. And for his speed, he's got the old dwarvish speed of 25. Yeah.
Not great.
No, but if you could get a Colossus on your side, then maybe he can throw you.
Right, you get in the battle quicker. Moving on to hit point maximum. We, in the past, have always given our pop culture characters as D&D characters max hit points for our giant battle royale. The season 1 is live on our YouTube now.
Yep.
So for that purpose, he's got a 77.
77 is actually the largest pool of health that any of our characters have ever had, even beating out the Hulk for 5th level D&D characters
2
that
points.
we've made. Yeah. This is partially due to, of course, his excellent con modifier. But if we look into the Dwarven Toughness with the +1 per level, that gives him an additional 5 HP, and it all adds up to him being really, really tough.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of ways to regenerate it, to add temporary hit points, to not lose much health through resistances. So he's going to be super tanky, super hard to take down.
However, many DMs will have you roll for your HP, of course. The max he would have is 77. If you took average, he would end up with 56, which is still very impressive. So that's probably a more realistic number, but for the sake of balance and our always upcoming battle royales, he's going to take max at 77, which is crazy.
I think we can move to attacks and spellcasting. He's got 2 attacks.
Yes. His adamantium claws and his adamantium claws as he rages.
Right. So he's at a +6 to attack on each of those. And 1d6, we're treating them essentially like
short swords.
Yep. 1d6 +3 when he's not raging, 1d6 +5 damage when he is. What does adamantium, which is actually a D&D...
It really is a material, yeah. Adamantium armor makes it so that you cannot suffer critical hits. Adamantium weapons, I'm going to say, are acting as keen and increase the critical hit range. So a big part of the Wolverine's claws, of course, is they can rend through anything, and critical hits always hit. So we figure that the claws should critical hit on 19s and 20s on your 20-sided die attacks.
And as well as their +1, just to give him a little bump.
To be magical.
To be magical, so that he can tear through some of those... beings that cause problems for 5th level characters.
Oozes.
Yes.
Which would melt your claws if they aren't magical.
Right,
so,
exactly.
That kind of stuff.
And on top of that, we gave him a couple of magic items as well. The adamantium claws are sort of integrated into that.
And
this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah, this one is definitely an excellent low-level magic item. The Ring of Regeneration. You regain 1d6 HP per 10 minutes, so you can pretty casually keep track of that effect. However, if you lose a body part, the missing body part may regrow. And that is very Wolverine, of course.
Yeah,
he needs to be able to reform even after the toughest of battles.
And finally, we felt like we hadn't quite filled out the senses portion of our key attributes just yet, so we gave him a Ring of the Wolf.
And that will give him advantage on perception checks related to scent in particular. A very minor magic item, but certainly makes him a little bit more Wolverine. When he sniffs the air, he may very well find you.
So that is our Wolverine as a 5th level, 5th edition D&D character. Let's go through our key attributes one more time real quick to make sure we feel like pretty confident about it.
Absolutely. So, his combat abilities.
He's got a bunch from Fighter and a couple from Barbarian.
Yeah, his samurai fighting spirit will make him really formidable in close combat, and the rage as well. Those, I feel, are his 2 real key, and the rest are just added a cherry on top of a really cool character. And his claws!
We told you about the claws, the +1 adamantium claws treated as short swords.
With an increased crit range, they should be able to tear through his enemies.
Durability.
We've never made a character more durable.
I don't think so. So, great con score.
Yeah. Dwarvish toughness. Toughness, racial abilities.
Dwarvish fortitude.
Racial feats, yeah.
Second wind.
Rage. Fighting spirit. Literally everything goes into
a ton of
durability and regeneration.
Regeneration, is played into that between the ring and some of those other regain hit points, temporary hit points abilities that we talked about earlier.
And then his senses, which I feel is probably the one that is the most minor of the ones that we hit, but we did do a pretty good job in that he is perceptive, he can survive out on his own, and with that Ring of the Wolf, you can definitely RP the old smelling the air and tracking your prey, just as the Wolverine does.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Hope you enjoyed our rendition of the Wolverine as a 5th edition, 5th level D&D character.
We've got a bunch of these on our YouTube channel now, including a Tournament of Champions from our first season. We're getting back into this. We're hoping to make a bunch more of these. So give it a like. Let us know what you think of our build.
Yeah, and if you have a build that you think fulfills the Wolverine character, let us know what you made up.
Or if you have somebody you want to see us make.
No doubt.
Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Thanks.